Paula, welcome to the Degrassi Kid podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, Jocelyn. I wanted to come on for some time, so this is really nice.
This is really nice. I got a shirt specifically printed for this too, so we can celebrate in style. We can celebrate Janie and the Studs.
Oh my God, it's very cool.
Isn't it cool? I'll add it to the Degrassi collection. I have I don't know if you know that you're on a Degrassi pillow, and
I sure do, but it was my first gallery shoot. It's the one with all of us, right? Drake at the center.
yes,
Yes.
yes, you're there, and you're in the corner. So sometimes when I'm on FaceTime, it's just me and your little face sticking out of it. And so many times, you know how on cell phones it recognizes everyone who's in a picture? There are so
Yeah.
many times that it'll just be a zoomed in version of you because you're in the photo somewhere, which is so
That is
funny.
hysterical because I look so glum in that photo and it's been immortalized forever. Everyone in my family has one. You have to. If your face is on a pillow, it
You
becomes the Christmas.
have to. Paula, every time I do one of these interviews, I always tell a story of how I met the person I'm interviewing from Degrassi. I think yours is maybe the craziest story I have because it actually starts in 2016. I was touring the set of Degrassi, and Ian Christensen at the end was like, who's Degrassi's publicist? He was like, hey, do you want to meet Paula? And I was like, yeah, I would love to meet Paula. And then he just in the moment arranged this meet and greet where I went down to Toronto. You're playing Miss Honey in the stage version of Matilda, and I met you. Do you do that? Do you just like meet up with people?
First of all, Ian's a dear friend, and he had already spoken about you to me. And I very much remember this moment. And I remembered meeting you. I, of course, remember you wearing the 88 t-shirt.
Got it in the frame. This is also up in my room for on display.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, isn't that
I
cute?
was so, it's interesting when you're doing a show in Toronto, you do get the opportunity to meet people after shows in a way that you may not. But he's so sweet to connect those dots and to get us together in person. It was really lovely. And I remember, like, I told my parents about it. I was like, I met this young woman who is so, you were just so frank about how much the show meant to you. And so it was very cool
Oh,
for me.
I love that. That's how I spent my 23rd birthday, was touring the set of Degrassi and meeting you. It was amazing. It's a memory forever.
Wow.
And
I'm so
then
happy to be a part of it.
yeah, and then you're also crazy enough, 7 years later at my 30th birthday party. I had known obviously that there was going to be a party there. Linda Schuyler had reached out to me and was like, hey, I know you're coming to Toronto for your birthday. Can I host your party? And I was like, of course you can, no problem. But I did
Cool.
not know that she was going to invite a bunch of Degrassi people, and you were one of them. Even if this answer is just for me, how did someone text you? Like, how did it come about that you're going to be at my 30th birthday party?
Linda and Steven emailed me and said, we're throwing Jocelyn this little birthday jam at our place. Would you come by? And I was like, absolutely. And I didn't know exactly who else would be there. I mean, of course, I knew Ian would be there and my buddy Michael Rubinoff, who I came with, but I didn't exactly know who would be there either. So it was a surprise for me too. But I was so delighted to be included because it was a really special day. Like I got to meet Evie and a bunch of other of the book club, the Degrassi book club or
Yeah,
fan club. All everyone was so kind and everyone spoke about what the show meant to them. It was a very emotional birthday visit, I felt.
absolutely
How did
crazy.
you have a good time? Like
It was nuts, and it was so much bigger than I expected. But it was kind of fun for me because I got to both host the surprise and be a part of it because I had thrown this birthday party for 2 days. We were traveling around Toronto. We went to Degrassi High, the set of the Next Generation. We did all this stuff. And I knew it was going to end at Linda Schuyler's. And I was like, oh, well, like, look, you get the full Degrassi kid experience. And then every like 30 minutes, it was like someone just kept showing up from the show and being like, hi, Jocelyn, here's donuts, here's flowers, here's wine. We love you. So it was
you're
amazing. It was incredible.
very beloved. You're very beloved in the Degrassi canon, and Linda loves you. And it was a really, really special day. So thank you for letting me be a part of it. It was so cool.
Anytime. We'll do it again next year. No problem.
Love
Um,
that.
I actually had a podcast where I had everyone who came on the trip. We sat on Zoom together and we each shared one special memory from the trip and that party. Do you have a special moment from that party, or is it just the overall feeling of it?
Oh, I mean, I was really moved. I think visibly so. I am a bit of a crier, but I don't think I knew exactly what. I knew it was your birthday, but when we all kind of went around and everyone spoke about what the show meant to them, it was so special and everyone was so open and kind and very honest about it, about their own personal stories. So I was very touched, and I guess the most special part was getting to speak to a lot of folks privately after,
Mhm.
and everyone being very open with me, who they didn't know and had just met. So I don't know, it was just another reminder of how much Degrassi touches people, like long after the show's been off the air. I'm just always like very, very delighted to have been a small part of this show and get to meet so many amazing people like you and your friends there.
Oh,
It was really special.
that is so special. That's one of the things that I love about hosting things like I hosted a book club, I host watch parties, is because when you become kind of the face of the fan community, is people also trust you with those stories. And I've learned so much about how much the show actually touches people. And that's why I love doing interviews like this, because we'll answer some fan questions later. And I know the fans who it's like Jane is their favorite character and they've left questions for you. So that's why I love getting to do all this stuff.
That's so wonderful. Well, they're in good hands with you. And the other thing about Degrassi that's amazing is there is a character for everybody. So we get to, every character has sort of their people that they connect with. So it's a very cool part of the show, it being such a big ensemble like that.
Absolutely. You were also mentioned one more time on this podcast, actually. When I had Annie Clark on, she told a really fun story about she used to love the show when she grew up.
I
And then
know.
she came on and she was a
I
fan
love
of
it.
you. Oh my God, that was my favorite. And she was all nervous to meet
Oh,
you. And now you guys are friends. So that's how I feel too. I'm like, I now am friends with
crazy to
Paula.
me that anyone would be nervous meeting me, but I remember meeting Annie and she was so poised and so like just so much cooler than I could ever have been at her age. We're not that many years
Mhm.
apart, but when you're like, graduating on Degrassi and the new cast is coming in, you feel so much older. And she was just so cool, calm, collected, and lovely. And I just listened to, I guess, the very first podcast that she was on with you of this. And I didn't realize that's how you came up like that the idea was from Annie. So that was a bit of Degrassi Kid podcast trivia that I didn't know.
I
So
love that you listen. Thanks for
yes.
listening. Yeah,
Oh,
Annie Clark.
absolutely.
I love when people ask me how I started this podcast or why, because I get to tell people that Annie Clark told me to. Like, I love it. Of course, I'll start a
I
podcast.
actually let's just do that. Annie Clark told me to. That's what I'm gonna say for a lot of things now.
She gives good advice, clearly.
He really does.
The crazy thing is that it's still not it with our history together, because then just 3 weeks later, we were at Canada's Walk of Fame. And this is where I have our first fan question come in from Mike. Mike is a huge fan of the kids of Degrassi Street. So there was some actors there. Nancy Lamb was there. The very first Degrassi kid, Zoe Newman, was there. So Mike wants to know, what is it like for you to go to something like the Walk of Fame and connect with people from different generations of Degrassi?
Hi, Mike. It was so special. That night was very, very cool. And there were a lot of us from all the gens. Not to be redundant, but it's another reminder of how many years the show has really touched people and how many of us who have been on the show have been touched by it. I often liken it to being part of like a big Italian family. I'm Italian, so you have cousins sort of that you've never met sometimes that live other parts of the world. And the minute you meet, you feel connected. I think Degrassi is very much like that. We see each other, and some of us hadn't met until that night, or we've been in the same rooms but not gotten a chance to speak at length. It just feels like a thing that bonds you forever. I feel like that about the next class as
Mhm.
well, and the newer gen, and certainly working with Stefan Brogren, he directed a bunch of like key episodes for me when I was on the show. So it was very cool to be in the hands of somebody who'd been with the franchise from the beginning, who like we
Oh,
obviously really, really trust with the tone of the show and with our stories.
that is incredible. I have also gotten the benefit of that feeling, because I remember Luke Billick, I was talking to him and he was like, "So what generation were you on?" And I was like, "No, I was not on the show." And he was like, "Oh, this whole time I thought you were on the show." I'm like, "No," but I got to
And that's
benefit from
exactly the
the
feeling you
bond.
get. Yes, and you could be. It's that thing that just there's like an invisible thread
I
in a
love
room
it.
of Degrassi lovers. It's very, very cool.
It's incredible. I told him that I'll tell him that I was on season 1, and then I'll tell the season 1 people I was on season 12, and let's do
That's
that.
exactly right. It's like high school. If you graduate out, if someone comes up to me and says I was at your high school, I'm like, oh, cool. We're bonded
Yeah,
forever, but we missed
forever.
each.
I love it. There are so many more Degrassi fan questions that came in, but first I want to paint a picture of Paula outside of Degrassi, and then we'll gush about this TV show that we love. And one thing that's kind of special about you is we were just talking about those kids of Degrassi Street. They all started not in the acting business. Most kids on Degrassi, they just do this show and then that's it for them. But you have not only have a huge acting experience, you have an acting career of being in shows that I loved growing up. You were in Dark Oracle. Violet was like one of my first TV crushes. Loved her. You
I'm
were in
so
Life with Derek. You were in Radio Free Roscoe. And even, I wasn't even thinking about this, but recently me and some of my friends watched Cowbells, and then you showed up in it. And I was like, she's everywhere, literally everywhere. So what is it that made you want to join this business and become an actor, Paula?
That's so nice that to hear about those shows. What's crazy is I shot them so many years ago, feels like not long ago. I was such a I was a kid who was not very hammy, and I was very shy and very scared of everything, to be honest with you. My
Hmm.
parents can attest to this, but I did find musical theater very young in my life, and I went to a place called Characters Theater Troupe that really changed my life because from there, my first agent came out to see a show on the recommendation of Megan Davis, who was our musical director, and I think when we were approached, my parents and I, by Shari Cronenberg, my agent, my first agent, we were like, really? I don't know that we could see that for me because I was so shy, but I definitely know that I felt so at home in like a rehearsal space with other music theater kids. I felt that on set early in, Dark Oracle being my first lead, but certainly being on set felt similar to that rehearsal hall experience. I was like, this feels like a family I want to be a part of. I feel like these are my people. So I would say that I didn't know it could be a career for me. I definitely didn't. When I started, I didn't know that I'd be doing it and evolving it to, my entire life's path, but it just snowballed and became something that felt really, really good and really natural. And I think
Oh,
that's all you kind of hope for. I was very lucky I found it early, for
oh,
sure.
that's incredible. And you are a great actor because every time I'm very familiar with your work and all the things you've been in, and you play a character that I see all the time. And still, I think you do so good at embodying the characters you take on that I don't see Jane or I don't see these other characters. I see the complete person that you're trying to portray. So you're one of my
Thanks.
favorite actors for that reason. You're so
That's
welcome.
very nice. Thank you so much.
No
It's all
problem.
to be able to act and take on different characters. So thanks.
Yes. Oh, I actually, which is the one I just watched? I'll never remember the title of it. The one where you play the psychotic assistant and you try to murder her.
Death She Wrote.
Death She
I
Wrote.
was trying to do my best Kathy Bates. I
Oh,
mean,
I
I
loved
was,
it.
that was really fun. Oh, thank
That
you.
was a fun one to watch, especially as like a crazy super fan. I always love watching those kind of stories of like, okay, is this how people see me in the world? Because that's a slippery slope.
Oh, and I feel like my poor grandmother had to watch that, and my nonna was like, that was terrifying and embedded in my brain forever.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. On top of continuing an acting career, you also started to step behind the camera. You became a producer, started a production company with Michael Cedar to paint the picture for the listeners. Not only is that Derek from Life with Derek, but he was also in Degrassi Goes Hollywood. He plays the TV version of Jason Mewes. So our first question comes from Evie, who wants to know, you've stepped behind the camera a little bit. What's your most fulfilling or exciting project that you've made outside of Degrassi?
Hi, Evie.
Hi,
Thank
Evie.
you for that question. I think certainly like the first couple of projects that Mike and I did together, we were learning together. So
Oh,
it was so thrilling because there's something about not, knowing a little bit, but really being in a position in your career. Like I was 23 when I started producing. You really are starting with so many questions and people are really open to helping you. So I would say like our first short SlideCAD, we got to go to Cannes with it and that was surreal and we met so many people who became mentors for us who helped us that sort of evolved into relationships for our first two features that we worked with Shaftesbury Films on. They produced Dark Oracle and Life with Derek. So I think doing those with Mike and getting to actually like hire our friends to act in these projects and crew members that we adore coming out to work with us, it's quite a like it was very cool, very surreal, definitely pinch me moments. And then seeing those projects, in a movie theater, Sadie's Last Days on Earth, People Hold On, that we wrote together. It was very like such a delight and really changed, I think, the course of the last 10 years for me in my career. I've now, I'm certainly acting and also developing my own projects. So
that's so
changed everything.
exciting. Did I hear
Yeah.
that one of your upcoming projects, are you working on like a queer love story? Maybe
I'm
I'm wrong in
thinking
that.
I mean, not specifically, but there is something with a queer love story in it, but it's not necessarily the whole
Oh.
project. But I don't know if I've spoken about it yet, so maybe it's
Uh-oh, maybe I went too deep in
maybe
my
it is a
research.
parenthesis, or maybe you could feel.
Yeah. Maybe I'm manifesting. I'm like, do a gay
Yeah,
one,
it's your
do a gay
manifesting.
one. I love that. I also want to give some listening or watching recommendations to the listeners to really encapsulate that you have a huge like career. You've worked on several projects that feature other Degrassi actors and creatives. So for example, Sadie's Last Day on Earth. If anybody misses Degrassi and wants more Degrassi, go watch Sadie's Last Day on Earth. There's like, so many Degrassi actors in that. We Are Disorderly not only features Degrassi actors, but did you make that with Linda Schuyler's brother? Was he a producer?
Yes, Michael Bach it was, and
Michael.
all of that crew, and Mark Panther was my first AD. Like it was surreal. We got Samir Raham, who directed a lot of the next class, was our director. So I produced that. I wasn't in it, but we and Christine Prosperi came and did a few episodes.
Oh my
It
God,
was a
Christine.
very cool thing to that was a big one where we brought like Nancy Markle was our scriptie and
Nancy.
the Keyworth. And so it was a very special time where we got to work with all that crew. So I couldn't believe that they, that they trusted us and we were in the halls with Linda all getting lunch because they were also developing something at the same time. So
Oh my
please do
God.
check it out. Yeah.
It's
And
good.
has
And it's
Ricardo and Monroe in it.
yes, those ones are easy to digest because the website is there and you can just click through them and watch them. It was a nice, easy watch. So the question I have for you about this is we know that the Canadian acting pool is very small in Toronto. There's gonna, of course, be repeated connections, but I'm curious, is there an environment that's created on Degrassi that kind of fosters or breeds these repeated connections through the industry?
It's a great question. I do think you're so right, Jocelyn. Degrassi, it's both of those things. Degrassi does foster an environment where people want to keep working together, whether it's with the other actors, with the crew, but also there's so many generations of us. And Toronto is, I call it a small, big city, okay? Like it is a big city, but it's small. Like you run into people so much, and our film industry is even smaller. So it's very intimate. And if you've grown up as a child actor, as a lot of us have, or
Mhm.
teen actors, you grow with the industry and you meet so many people. So I think it's so natural to want to keep working with each other. Certainly as a producer, it's one of my favorite parts is getting to kind of like build out your dream cast and then getting to set and seeing so many crew members that you love. So I think it's twofold. Like it's probably a little bit of on purpose we find each other, but also the industry here is quite small. So it's a bit of like everyone's a couple degrees away from a Degrassi cast member, I would argue,
Right?
this city.
100%. And every time I interview someone who's also been on Life with Derek, that's one of the number one questions. It's like, what's up with all this crossover that's happening? Because everyone's
Totally.
also been on Life with Derek. I
That's
love that.
right. Those mid 2000s were very major.
I loved it. This is where we start. Now we're going to transition into Degrassi. Our first fan question for this side comes from Shannon from my birthday party. And you know what? It's her birthday this weekend. So happy birthday to Shannon.
Hi, Shannon. Happy birthday.
She's going to love that. Her question is about your Degrassi audition. Can you tell us about that? Did you audition before Jane? Or was
Yes,
Jane it?
actually, thank you for reminding me that I did. Yes, I did. Way back when for the first, so like the next generation, the first season, I auditioned. I'm pretty almost 100% sure it was for Emma. I would have been
Crazy.
very early in my acting career, so I was very very new and didn't I knew the show a little, like I'd heard the name, but
Mhm.
didn't know that the next generation would become what it was. So that was very cool. And then actually I did audition for Kendra. Do you remember Kendra? Okay,
Kendra Mays, Spinner's sister.
I know. And then what a twist it became because finally, years later, I got an audition for the season I ended up being on, but I was able to pick if I wanted to audition for Holly J, Anya, or Jane. And I normally, at that time, it's funny you mentioned cowbells. I had done a bunch of sort of Disney Channel roles and a couple of things that felt that they could fall in that Holly J space from the like
Mm.
couple of lines we got in the casting breakdown. So I think my instinct initially was like, maybe that's what I should audition for, but I never get to do anything like Jane. She seems so cool. Forget it. I'm gonna just go in for Jane. And I didn't know if that was the right call, but something was calling me towards Jane. And I thought she was just so rad, even from the couple of scenes that I read.
Yeah.
The sides, which are audition scenes. That's what it's called. And then when I was called back, I was really like, I would think I was surprised because I didn't know that I was necessarily right for it. And that callback I was so nervous because the show was quite big at this point, and I had friends on the show, and it was felt like a big deal. And when I heard I got it, I was in my grade 12 music class, and I like left on my little flip phone, went into the stairwell to hear my agent telling me I got it. So it was very, very cool.
Oh my
Very,
God.
very exciting. Yes.
And obviously fate because you play Jane so well. Like Jane is the character for you. And who would have known that that first rejection, it's like, just wait, it's gonna happen.
Thank you. You know what? It's a great reminder for actors that like you might not be right for a certain role, and then at a
Yeah.
different point something is right for you, and the part that you don't normally think is right for you could be right for you. Like it was a big lesson for me in not putting myself into a box.
And I also love this because there's someone else on Degrassi who has a very similar story. Charlotte Arnold auditioned for Emma, didn't get it, and then got the choice between Anya, Jane, and Holly J, and picked Holly
Yeah, oh
J.
my gosh, that makes sense. And I can't picture anyone else doing Holly J but
Right?
Char. So
Exactly.
it's very interesting when those like sliding doors happen.
I love
So
that. Another fun fact I believe about Jane is was she inspired by Avril Lavigne? Is that a true fun fact?
You know what? I wonder if it was in the breakdown because I definitely know we spoke about it, in particular, her first couple of episodes having the look be, referencing Avril, and she was, I mean, Avril, who we all just saw at Walk of Fame.
I know.
Girl was
Crazy.
everything for me at that time. So we put in like green hair extensions and she had this skateboarder look. So she was definitely a reference for her like feel and aesthetically, but also I think even just the cool factor. Like Jane had this cool factor, but I also really have to shout out Shane Kipple because I do think a lot of the time, like had he not been so sweet and generous,
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have worked because I was really coming in to be his love interest in those very crucial the cancer episodes for him.
Hmm.
And I think on the show, there's so many characters. It's really about the chemistry working and Shane's just such a lovable guy and he was so welcoming and I
Yeah.
was very nervous to join the show. So I'm very grateful to him because I think because I felt relaxed, it really just lent itself to that the Spain of it all working.
Oh, I love that. I love how many times you almost played his wife, Emma. You almost played his sister, Kendra. You're like, I'm gonna go for the girlfriend role. We're gonna get here.
Meant to be something familial. Yeah.
I love that. Jane also has several standout episodes, but there's a few that come to mind. For example, Fight the Power. That is when Jane joins the boys' football team and they start hazing her for it. Chantel wants to know, and I think this is funny because I know the answer to this question. Did you have any sports experience prior to being on Degrassi?
Well, we know the answer is, well, the answer is no. I was, in fact, the last picked on sports teams in gym class. So when we turned the page and read our script, because I don't know if listeners would know this, they might, we don't get scripts ahead of time. We would sit down and all read them for the first time in the table read. So we were also surprised at the same time. I was kind of mouth dropping, like, oh God, we have to shoot this in a week and a half. Like, it wasn't like months ahead. I thought the script was for me, it's certainly a career highlight shooting that episode
Mhm.
with Ellen Orlando, who was nominated for it too, and Matt Heater, who wrote it. It was very cool, very challenging, very special, and the writing was so strong. And Friday Night Lights had just come out, so Eleanor gave me that to be like, watch this over the weekend. You'll be able to, you'll be able to hopefully speak football, or at least you'll want to play it. Like I was just very scared at I knew I wouldn't be able to run fast, but can I pull this off just even in a close up? And we just found such a good language and shorthand around, how to work with our stunt double. We trained with a male football team, but not a lot of time. So I was very nervous. I was very nervous, but
Oh my,
hopefully it worked and cut together okay. I mean, I'm very proud of the episode for
oh my
sure.
God, that's amazing. Did your dad help you prepare for this at all? Please tell us about that.
Yes, I talked about that years ago, I think. He sure did. I was like, Dad, I'm concerned. I have to play football for this episode. And he brought me to the park on our street. And he'd be like, You're a Brancati, you can do this. Because him and my Aunt Rosie are so much more naturally athletic than me. And I was like, okay. And I would run. And he taught me how to throw with a spiral over that weekend. And I was like, yeah. And I showed up at not rehearsal, I guess it's called practice. So you literally don't understand sports. We're at practice. And they told me I was going to be wide receiver. Not that I knew what that meant. Oh, it's that I'd spent all weekend throwing, but in fact, I have to start catching. So I was like, Dad, I've got to catch now. And hilariously, I have to catch at the end of the credits. I had to catch that ball
Oh,
and
yes.
we barely got it. That take you see where I turn around, I was like, oh my God, I could not believe I caught it. So lots of firsts on that show
Oh
for
my
me.
God. Yes, I'm basically I've heard you talk about this, and I'm basically going to walk you through all my favorite parts of the story and make you repeat it because I think it is so freaking funny.
Oh my God, please do.
Specifically that this is even funnier because then I went and watched Dark Oracle and I was like, I see it. Were you told that you have to learn how to run?
Oh my gosh, I forgot I've talked about this publicly. Yes. Yes, that's right, Jocelyn. It was carryover from that time. So that was a very adventurous show, as you might recall, a mystery show. We were always running to and from somewhere. So
Hmm.
I just thought you just run. Like I didn't think it had to do with athletics, but the network, I believe it was the network. Somebody had sent a message down the line. It was a long time ago now, so maybe I've got it wrong, but they'd sent a message down the line like Paula needs to run like with her knees up, basically. She's got to run like somebody's after her. And I was like, I feel like I'm running very fast. So they had Alex House and I, who played my twin on the show. we would practice on the floor of the school, like that was empty. We'd go a floor down and they were like, hey, chase her so that if someone's running behind you, you really feel fearful. And I shoot a show called Slasher now. Aaron Martin created it,
Oh,
who is
Aaron
the
Martin.
showrunner on Degrassi, our beloved Aaron. And I'm running a lot in that show. And I always remember that advice of like, okay, always run like someone's chasing you and get those knees up. So yeah, that residually, I'm sure, affected this little football turn for me. So I
That's
definitely
incredible.
sat Eleanor down and said, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I think you need a great double for the wides because I can't
Hmm.
really get out of the way, but I will sell it in that close up. And I think it's a lesson for me that sometimes you can't be a hero as an actor. You got to be honest about your limitations, and then they
Smart.
can work around it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, also, I believe I understand that they got you a stunt double, but was there a mix up that someone didn't understand they needed to tackle the stunt double and not you?
Oh my gosh, so I'd forgotten about all this. Yes. So and bless, like, the football players are just actual football players. And
Hmm.
then there's our football guys like, Natty and Ray and Delmar. Like everyone of the actors, of course, knew who was me and who was the stunt double. But we were playing with the other team that was a
Hmm.
real football team. So sometimes we'd switch out and it would be the stunt double. And I guess someone didn't get the memo on that side that for my pass of the wide, we would stop at the tackle. So this guy did the tackle on me and I was like stunned, but I did just keep going because I was like, well, I've already been hit, so we might as well.
Mm.
You know, there's nothing to really do here. It's happening. But yeah, that was so long ago, but what a
Oh my
thrill.
God.
I was definitely felt like for a long time after I was like, oh, I've played football. Like I kind of felt in my bones that I was a football player.
You earned your stripes after that tackle for
As you
sure.
notice, we never went on a football field again on the show. She became a singer. So we really pivoted.
I love it. I love it. Lesson learned on both ends on that one, I think. I love it. Um,
Absolutely.
well, as fun as that episode sounds like it was to shoot, it is a very, serious episode where there's a lot of obstacles that Jane is facing. Why do you think that is an episode that connects with the audience so much with Degrassi?
It was so meaningful to shoot that and then to hear back from people. It was
Hmm.
before social media when I was on the show. So it was a different time in terms of hearing back from people, but we would get letters written that would come to the studio. And it was very, very interesting to hear from specifically girls who wanted to be on male sports teams. I didn't realize how, I read about it a bit before. I did a little research before, of course, but it was very common, for there to be a point where they would be pushed out of something because of their gender. And I knew, certainly the misogynistic coach, like that's a story that sadly is timeless. And
Hmm.
it actually felt like it was so poignant at the time and has resonated for years after because sadly those things don't go away. I
Yeah.
hope that we're at a time where, someone like Jane, she's so brave. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this character's so much braver and cooler than I am. And she was able to be so strong at 17, 18, like
Hmm.
how she spoke up for herself, that I certainly hope that inspired a bit of that in me. And I'm very inspired by young people today using their voices for whatever cause, may speak to them. So I think we're in a really exciting time where there are a lot of like Janes out there, you
I
know.
agree. I agree. Yeah, that episode's very relatable to me because I think every young girl has gone through the situation where you want to do something, sports, or maybe just literally anything, and someone says, "Well, you can't do that because you're a girl, or you're not supposed to do that because you're a girl." Especially as growing up as someone who was in the closet, hearing a lot, "Well, you're not supposed to do that because you're a girl," and it kind of drives you into this world that you think you have to be a certain way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's very frustrating, I'm sure.
100%. The other fun fact that I have is it's kind of a two-sided fun fact. You were nominated for a Gemini Award because of this episode, but lost it to Michael Cedar.
I did. It was a nice way to lose. He was at the end of life with Derek at that time, and we knew each other, and I'd done the show, but we didn't start producing together till after. So
Oh,
I still remember him giving the speech. It was really, really, and Stacey Farber was nominated that year, and Eleanor. So it was a very, very special year to be nominated.
that is so cool. Did it like heal the wound that you lost? Were you like, well, now he's my buddy now?
Totally. And I actually absolutely. And I also now really understand like when people say I didn't expect to win. I really think that nobody nominated does expect to win because you really look at everyone around you and you're like, oh, they're so amazing. So it
Yeah.
could be anybody and you're just like chuffed to be a part of it.
Yeah.
It was I was very, very, very blown away by the fact that I got to go. And for that episode specifically, because like
Oh,
when you're a regular on a show, you don't know what's going to necessarily be submitted. But I felt like that time on set was really like it felt very special for all of us, that particular episode. So I'm so proud of that
I
for the
love
team.
that. That is one of my standout episodes too, because of that message of like you can literally be whoever you want and do whatever you want. Like you don't have to fit in this box that other people want you to fit in. Do what you want to do, which is a huge message on Degrassi.
Exactly.
The other huge one, of course, is Jane Says, where Jane learns she was assaulted by her father. I'm curious about the fan reaction to this one. Is this one that kind of gets the biggest reaction from fans?
It does get a lot of reaction. Yeah, it makes me, still very upset at how common this is, like
Hmm.
that it's a timeless another story that's timeless. I think Degrassi does such an amazing job at getting very specific about issues. So,
Hmm.
there are many ways to tell a sexual abuse and sexual assault story. There's a lot of nuance. When they did tell me, I will say that it's rare that you see, ahead of time what storyline you're getting. I did get a little bit of advance warning on this, and I'm really glad they did. I took it so seriously, of course. As I, by the way, should stress, our entire cast and crew did. We just are very aware, and we're aware at the time that people really watch this show with such a careful eye that it saves lives. It means a lot to people. That's not every show you're on,
Hmm.
and it's not every piece of writing. So it felt much more than a acting job, and we took it so seriously. So I did a lot of research. I'm very touched still at how people will sometimes, DM me, or if they see me, they'll talk about this and talk about their own experiences with sexual abuse in such a frank way.
Hmm.
And I think I'm grateful that they would feel comfortable enough to share, but I definitely think the writing was very particular in the details around someone suppressing memories. And I've learned a lot since then. I was 19 when we did that, maybe 18 or 19, and I looked into a lot of how that would work, and certainly I've learned a lot more sense about PTSD and about how powerful our brains are to protect us. So I think it was such a quiet episode, if you know what I mean. From what I remember thinking about,
Yeah.
oh, this is such an interesting two-parter. It wasn't like there was a lot of her processing things and not
Yeah.
saying them out loud, and I thought it was just very, a very particular way of looking at recalling this kind of thing and having her dad come back in her life, and
Hmm.
it really resonated with a lot of people, and I hope it helped some people, and brought some comfort.
Jane is one of those ones because anytime I meet someone who loves Degrassi, one of the first things I'm like, okay, well, who's your character? Who's the one that makes you love the show? And Jane is one of the top ones that always comes up, and it's this episode that's always gets mentioned. And that's kind of the nice thing is sometimes it's like an unspoken conversation too, because it's like, well, mine's Jane because the episode Jane sends, and you don't have to go that much deeper into it. I understand what you're talking about
Right.
and what you've been through. And one of the things I love about this episode is you have characters like Luke who are very like I don't know, manly and like they like to fight a lot and they don't like to be challenged. And then he has this realization of what happened to his sister and he just is immediately on her side. He immediately believes her. He's not being like, well, no, that's my dad. That's nothing. That's what I love about Degrassi. Is it shows that any type of person can stand up and be a support person and not just fall victim to being a stereotype on TV.
Such a great, so well said, Jocelyn. It's like you're right. You have a young man not questioning his
Mm-hmm.
sister and supporting her.
Yeah.
And I think, not to speak for Linda, but over the years, I know that it was very important to her to write a show where the adults weren't, tying up the messy loose ends, and that the
Yes.
kids were the teenagers were experiencing these stories, whatever they may be, whatever messiness might come from it. And I think that also lent itself to how these things look. It's not actually an adult coming in and standing up for Jane. It's
Mm-hmm.
Jane in support of her brother really standing up to her father.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also commend like the crew that I've spoken about already, of course, so fondly. It was just so apparent that the show mattered to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like I came on set for that very final scene of the two-parter where Jane's on her mom's lap. And I'd been, nervous and thinking about it. And the crew was whispering. You could hear a pin drop. I guess like RIDs had given a chat with or it was just understood, but there was like, I mean, I get a bit emotional now and chills thinking about it because it was so deeply respectful and just you feel so supported. It's like you're all
Yeah.
doing this thing together and hoping that it will cut through the screen on TV and help somebody. So not to sound
Oh,
altruistic, but I think it really mattered to us that we try to get it right for sure.
100%. That's one of the things I love about Degrassi is yes, they get the on-screen story right, but the thing is about the cast is I really feel like they have a process where they go through and make you understand what's happening in these episodes instead of just like, okay, you're going to film this, then we're going to end our day. And one of the questions that I'm always curious about with Degrassi actors is I know it's like a big thing when you get the big episode, right? It's like, okay, they finally trusted me with this huge topic. But then do you feel kind of a sense of responsibility to become an advocate for the topic that they assign to you? Like, for example, assault?
You know, it's a great question. Like, I think because we did do PSAs for Rain
Hmm.
afterwards, and that was something they asked if I would be interested in, and I said, of course. Like, I think I can't speak for the other cast, but I definitely feel like there's a responsibility to get it right, as I said, and do as much research as possible. And if there is a way to help move the needle because your character matters on the show, so speaking to it in a PSA will help, then of
Hmm.
course I'm all in. And, you know, they're all issues that really matter to all of us. It's a very easy yes to say, like, yeah, of course I want to help young people or anyone who's going through this, or adults who may be recalling memories. Like there was such a it was really a big learning curve for me about how, you know, just how abuse and assault works,
Yeah.
and that there is no linear way through healing. And so I'm very grateful that I got to learn by proxy,
Hmm.
and people close to me and people that I'd worked with, people just came up to me after that episode and during and through that process and shared their stories privately just because they'd known I'd been working on this
Hmm.
and, you know, working with Rain. So it also opened up a dialogue in my own life that I think, you know, I don't know that I would have had even like the tools to talk about. So I
Yeah.
guess the short answer is yes, there is a bit of a responsibility, but you want to make sure you're not becoming a spokesperson without taking the proper steps to like learn about what you're speaking to, for sure.
100%. You also played characters who faced abuse outside of Degrassi. I just want to let everybody know you also did. You did Rain, you did the sexual assault hotline, and you also do Maybe Me. And I think that's important because I've connected with Degrassi because I saw myself on TV. I saw a teenager who was going through my story, and I think it's so impactful to have someone who's so relatable and someone who we are so comfortable with stand out and say, hey, this is what you may be going through. Here's your resources on how you can get help if you're going through it. So I think it's so impactful that you did all of three of those campaigns together.
I'm glad that it was, you know, affecting. That's
Yeah.
all I can hope for.
I will just share a fun sidebar to a fun behind the scenes story because Annie Clark taught me that you don't get to learn about stories in advance. But she said,
Yeah,
but if you have something crazy going on, they will pull you aside to be like, hey, this is happening. So, like,
yeah.
if Cam does something, he's going to get pulled aside. And Annie told me a story about how they are all sitting there, the scripts are flipped over. And then right before they start, Linda goes, wait, Annie, can I talk to you in the hallway? And Annie Clark thought she was going to be murdered in Degrassi. Then she found out she was like, in this character, you come out of the closet as a lesbian. Is that okay? And Annie was like, yeah, like, I thought you were gonna murder me. I
She's
think
like,
it's
this is my
hilarious.
I'm getting let go talk.
Yeah, in front of everyone. So funny. But then
Oh
she
my
just came out of the
God.
closet and she had a huge career on the show, so that was fine. But so
And
funny.
that was a huge Degrassi arc. So
Oh, the
amazing.
best. My favorite, anyway.
I know.
Jane's story also has a big impact in the movie Degrassi Takes Manhattan. Also, mostly because of its legacy of this is when the Spinner and Jane breakup happens and it leads to him marrying Emma. What is your opinion on this marriage? The most controversial top part of Degrassi ever.
It's a polarizing marriage indeed. What's my opinion? Okay, so I feel like Jane got a lot of heat for this, and I understand why. But
Mm-hmm.
I also felt she'd had a rough couple of years, a lot. We've just spoken about some of her, you know, and her boyfriend having cancer. That was how I started the show, actually. And
Yep.
then her own journey on the show. So I felt like that last season for her was her really like having just some freedom and some fun. And, you know, she cheated on Spinner, which was not to justify that, but she
Mm-hmm.
definitely, you know, Holly J told her, cut it off. She cut it off.
Course corrected.
I naively thought, oh, maybe that's it. Like, I don't, maybe we're not dealing with it. And I did feel a certain like guilt about it because I love Spain. But then when it came to a head in the movie, I think I was shocked too. I loved shooting those scenes. Like it was really like emotional as I hopefully it comes across. We were, you know, Shane Spinner overhearing the girls talk. Like I felt so awful for him. So I definitely didn't blame him for going down another road, and I love Emma forever. I was really an Emma Sean fan. I'm gonna go on record. This was
Mm.
tough for me, not even as Jane. But I have to say, I thought it was such a mature end. Like the way she came back around to apologize, him
Mhm.
sort of giving this forgiveness to her,
Mhm.
her driving off in the sunset in that Porsche. It was all very, I actually felt like such a, it was a really nice way to end the show with like a bow.
Yeah.
She's a young person and she made some mistakes, and sometimes when you hurt people, a lot of the time there are consequences. So again, I think it's another way Degrassi's like, this is not going to end in a
Mhm.
perfect bow. But I will say, I did feel like she as a woman got so much heat for cheating. Again, not for her cheating on him.
Agreed.
But man, some of the boys have cheated on the show, and I did not feel the same heat when no one seems to care that, Craig, I think Spinner's cheated. I was like, well, the boys sort of
Mhm.
get a freebie here. So that's my thought on that, is I remember feeling like, oh man, the vitriol was intense online.
I agree. Craig spends like 4 seasons and all he does is cheat on his girlfriends. And even in the Degrassi Goes Hollywood movie, Ellie comes back, has this like love scene with them, or they're like flirting with each other, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, that's like my fiance in the other room." Like
Oh my God, that's
everybody loves
true.
it.
Even I've blocked it out. Well, we're living in a patriarchy, but I do stand Craig forever. Love Jake
Yeah,
Epstein.
we love Jake Epstein. That's so funny. You know what? So for anyone who's listening, Stephen Stone has said that their choice in that was a good way to wrap up the generation, because Emma was technically the younger generation and Spinner was the older one, and they were still around, so they wrapped them up. But I also think it's a great marketing tactic, because that is like the most discussed part of Degrassi. Everyone has an opinion about Spinner and Emma getting married.
That's a
So
great point. No, it was a
it was
very
smart.
like, why not blow it up? Why not do something insane? And by the way, I think that Miriam and Shane are so sweet together. Like I
Oh,
always there's something about I find Spinner, I think Shane has the ability to like he has chemistry with everybody because he's again so
mhm.
lovable. I loved him with Manny, I loved him with Paige. So there is that little webisode we did where we have all his ex-girlfriends together. Do you remember we talked?
Yes. And they who's the best kisser? And then he says Terry McGregor, and you're like, excuse
That's
me.
right. That's right. And I remember thinking, oh, Spinner dates very cool people. So,
Yeah.
I could kind of get behind him with anybody, to be honest.
Yeah, true. I think it's just the fact that it was like literally the next day, and then he's like in Vegas or in Niagara
It was
Falls,
like
has a
quick
tattoo.
48 hours. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a tight turnaround, but I don't know. Maybe who knows if they're still together?
maybe.
Maybe.
My Not to derail too much, my fan theory is that they're falling apart because in Degrassi Next Class, they had a Throwback Thursday episode where they brought back like Paige and Spinner and Emma and all these people. And Spinner and Emma like have no chemistry in that scene together. But then him and Paige are walking down the hallway, like reliving their memories together. And I'm like, I think they hooked up at the reunion, like Spinner and Paige. They must have. That's my fan
I would
theory.
be down for that circle back. I
Yeah,
would be down
right?
for that circle back. Yes.
That's the thing, is if Spinner came back with literally anyone, I think everybody would be like very happy about that.
And Emma and Sean, that's all.
Oh, see, I'm too gay for that one. So
Respect.
Fiona and any girl on the planet is fine by me. Um,
Oh, Fiona.
Eugene has a question for you, because this
Oh,
movie really marks the end of Jane, who graduated and became valedictorian. And when it comes to Degrassi, as an audience, we understand that, okay, you graduate and you kind of are done with the show. There's a chance you might come back. But on the actor side, is it also just like, okay, I'm graduated, I'm done now? Or was there any discussion about wanting Jane to stay on any longer?
oh, that's such a good question. I
Hmm.
think it wasn't a discussion so much as it just felt from the writing that that was going to be the time. She'd had such a packed couple of years. And honestly, when I joined the show, not to get into the weeds of like contracts and stuff, but I was only on for like it was only 1 year to start with, in that I didn't know. That's why I do say like
Ah.
I don't know if Spinner and Jane hadn't resonated with audiences. There's no way to know for sure how it would have gone. So it evolved into something even bigger than I could have imagined. And I was already Paula was in grade 12 when I joined the show. So I didn't start as a character or as a person in grade 9. So I figured it would probably be about 3 years. She was already in grade 11, second
Mm.
semester, grade 11 in the story. So I actually
Wow.
imagined 3 seasons. I would have been happy to stay on, absolutely. And had there been a place for the story to go, for sure. But it felt like a really nice natural end, and a really nice big way to end. We all got to go to New York for that story. It was a really like quite a zhuzhy final couple of episodes. She girl had a packed couple of years.
Oh
She'd
yeah,
have
she deserved a movie. She deserved a
she
movie.
needed a movie, and she needed to rest. She had to
Yeah,
take a bit of a hiatus, I think.
I agree. Marisa wants to know if there was ever a Degrassi reboot. Would you come back for it?
Yes. Why not? I'd love to see what Janie's up to. I
I
mean,
agree.
I'd be so curious to see what her life is like now. And I just love the fandom of the show, and I
Mhm.
love all the people who worked on the show. So it would be a very easy yes.
I
Yeah.
love that. I have two theories. If it's just like checking in on Jane and she's not still connected to Degrassi, the school, I think she would be a music producer, to be honest. I think she would go behind the
I
scenes.
love that. I thought you were gonna say music teacher, which I also love, but let's just take it to she's, Spotify adjacent.
I think
She
so.
is producing Taylor Swift level
Yeah, okay,
music.
I love that. Maybe she's Drake's producer, maybe. Maybe we get that's how we get our little
Aubrey
one of the other controversial parts of the movies is one time they reference Drake as Drake, and everybody's like, that doesn't make sense because he's Jimmy Brooks. So that was also a
in
good pick.
the takes Manhattan.
Goes Hollywood, the one before it.
They say Drake as Drake,
They
yes,
see
but they're
Drake as
not
Drake.
saying, oh, that's so
Oh,
funny. I don't remember that.
I do, and everybody talks about it, so that's a good thing. But I think if we follow Jane and she was somehow at Degrassi, I actually think she would be like the guidance counselor. She went through everything. She could talk to anybody about anything, and she's so warm.
I love
Yeah.
that. And I think she was always well, she and I are Italian, so
Hmm.
we are long-winded and have lots to say. So and
I
there
love
is
it.
a general warmth to her for as cool she wasn't chilly, like she just
No.
had a very tight circle. I
Yep.
like that guidance counselor approach. Listen,
Yeah.
let's run with it, Joss. You
We
pick
got
it.
this. If
Do
anybody's got
people
it,
call
it's
you
us.
Joss? I just said Joss. Do people call you Joss? I'm sorry if I
I
jumped the nickname.
I love when people call me Joss because it makes me feel like they feel comfortable with me. So I love it.
Okay,
I
okay,
love
good.
it.
I wanted to check. It felt very natural.
I love that. Look at us. Yeah, okay. I think Degrassi's biggest fan and someone who's a producer we're the two people who are gonna bring the show back. We got this. I'll promise it right now.
Okay.
Um the other big thing about Jane is that she was a part of Janie and the Studs. And one of the things that's crazy about Degrassi is most times if you have a band on a TV show, most of the actors don't actually know how to play their instruments. But Studs or the Studs are stacked with Degrassi musicians. I'm wondering, have you guys ever performed together outside of the show?
I know that the boys had a
They had,
band called Sound Speed.
and some of
Yes,
them are
thank
also
you.
in Leslie
Oh
Edit.
wait, and wait, is this? I can't really see them.
This is a different one
Oh,
with
this is
Shane and Peter.
Shady's band. Yes, and I've seen them play too. Yes,
They've
Left Foot
had
Yellow.
like 5 bands together.
Such a great drummer. And then Sound Speed, which is, when a boom operator who's recording sound, before we start rolling, they say Sound Speed. That's where they got that name from. And that
I didn't
was,
know that.
yes, that's a little film trivia. And their band was named after that. And it was Dalmar and Ray and Shane. And I might be missing other people, but oh, maybe Jamie was in it too. I'm kind of confusing it, but they have
Yeah.
performed a bunch. And then we all performed at the rap party as Janie and the Studs because on set we would like, yes, we all played and sang, but you re-record everything in the studio. And then on the day, you're not
Mhm.
really actually playing. So we didn't get, so then we would like rehearse in Ray's basement and get ready to perform for the rap party. Play
Oh
some
my
of the songs from
God.
the show, but also some other covers. And like it was very, very fun. We really took it very seriously from my memory.
I love that. And then at the wrap party, did it go successful? Did you meet your objective?
I see where you're like, oh yeah, we're getting to a particular anecdote. It went pretty successfully. What do you want to know?
Speaking of Drake, did you happen to perform anything by Drake?
So, okay, I should say that Aubrey, along with Shane, were big, like big parts of making me feel welcome on the show. They'd obviously been on the show forever. And then Aubrey was becoming Drake in front of our very eyes. Like that summer of when I was finished, like 2008,
Mm-hmm.
best I ever had was the song of the summer. We had gone to his show at Sound Academy. Like, you're like, Aubrey, this is insane. Like you're massive. Like it was so exciting to be part of it. And we were becoming huge. We were already big Aubrey fans, but we were becoming big Drake fans, at the same time as the public. So it was very
Mm-hmm.
surreal. I'm sure more surreal for the cast who had also like grown up with him since they were very little. But that was the song of the summer, best I ever had. So we thought it would be amazing to play this for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I still stand by our choice to do that. But we just all agreed that we would sing every lyric together, all of them, all the cussing, all the sexy stuff, anything dirty. I don't know why. Like, I'm sure I remember telling this on an
Mm-hmm.
interview or something.
The
It's
Damo.
realized on YouTube. Yes.
Yep.
And Linda and Steven were there, and it was my final rap party, and I was so excited. And in my memory, I was doing even a call and answer, hoping everyone would join in. Like, all right, guys, you know the part. And it was like, my shirt ain't got no stripes, but I would make a pussy whistle. We can say pussy on here, I hope.
Linda and Steven, you know the
I
words.
know.
It's
Somewhere to
incredible.
find. By the way, no one. They had all been singing. Everyone had been singing everything. Everyone bowed out. I was like, but that's a great lyric. Why aren't we all saying it? I was also
I love
19
it.
embarrassed. Now I would be much less embarrassed, but I was really like blushy.
Yeah,
So
I love that.
thrilled to retell that two times.
I love it. I had to. I know there's a couple. That interview was my favorite one, so I was like, I'm gonna walk her through a couple of these stories because it's been a while since people have seen that. That's one of my
A
favorite
long
ones.
time, and let's
Incredible.
get it fresh in the queue. Let's
Exactly. Exactly. A more touching story maybe stalked your Instagram for this one. In 2017, you toured the set of Degrassi and your family got to come with you. Was that the first time they'd ever come? Does it feel like visiting a high school? Tell me about that.
That's such a great question and a great memory because yeah, so that was my Aunt Rosie, who was really like kind of a big
Oh.
sister to me growing up. My dad and her are 15 years apart. So she was always felt like big sistery, like my cool
Mhm.
young aunt and her kid, who's my cousin technically, but he's much younger than me. He was a big fan of the next class. So Anna Goya so sweetly came out to meet him and do the tour with us. And Ian Christensen, of course, facilitated. So it was well after I'd been off the show. It was very cool to go back. When I was filming, I don't, I remember us all being at the age where we started driving, so we'd have our own parking spots. So our parents and family didn't come as much. I'm sure my mom would have popped in. I had friends come by at the end of days sometimes, and they'd get to meet Aubrey and Shane I think that was because I had so many friends who were huge fans of the show before I was
Mhm.
on it. So that was very cool. But my family, yeah, I was at the age where they weren't really there. So that was very, very special to have Andreas and Maitzia, Rosie see the set. And then a year later we all went back. I think it was about a year later we did the Drake, Aubrey
The big one.
video shoot. So that was like the final, that felt also very surreal. Yeah, it does feel like coming back to high school in a way. It does.
Wow.
And I mean, even as you and I speak today, it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was like over 15 years ago, which is crazy.
It's even as I get older, I'm like, oh my God, even like Degrassi hasn't put out a new episode in 7 years, and I forget that sometimes. It's crazy.
Me too. Yeah, to me,
Crazy.
the next class just happened. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
bizarre how time feels a little frozen when it's a time, for anyone who's any period that was exciting in one's life, I think can really just it feels frozen in time a little bit.
100%. Paula,
These are good. These are good questions.
that was our interview together. Thank you so much for doing this. This is like a highlight in my Degrassi kid career. I appreciate this so
Oh,
much.
you're so wonderful. And thank you for, loving the show and then sharing that love with us. It's my pleasure to talk to you, Jocelyn. You rock.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I'm gonna let you go now. This was the best. I'm gonna tell everybody that this happened. I'm gonna brag about it, and you'll see it on the internet in like a week and a half.
Okay, perfect. I had so much fun with you. Have an amazing day.
Oh,
Bye.
thank you too. Mwah. Okay, bye.
Bye.